Number 10, Jennifer Aniston nearly quit. Jennifer was the last to sign for the final 10th season of Friends, and she very nearly didn't return at all. Part of this was down to her busy career because at this point, she was definitely one of the most famous of the Friends cast. She had several movies on the slate. She later revealed that she was debating not coming back because she had a couple of issues that she was dealing with at the time. Jennifer said that she wanted to end the show when people still loved them and they were on a high. She also questioned herself about how long she really wanted to play Rachel. Jennifer obviously eventually agreed to the final season, but she is the reason why it's the shortest season, because she only agreed to return if it was cut short. Luckily for everyone, she decided to stay and felt bittersweet about the final season, and in the end she found herself wishing that it could have continued on. Most of the cast members' careers have crashed and burned after Friends ended, but Jennifer Aniston was a rare exception. She went on to star in several Hollywood blockbusters like Bruce Almighty, Break Up, Marley and Me, Just Go With It, Horrible Bosses, and We're the Millers, all of which were very successful at the box office. Number 9, Matthew struggled with substances. As we know, Matthew Perry's sudden death has completely shocked the world. The beloved actor was found at his home after an apparent drowning. He was only 54 years old, and his passing was an absolute tragedy. Many of the Friends cast struggled to deal with their newfound fame, and for Matthew, this led to problems with addiction, which he has been extremely open about in his memoir. Although he said that he was never drunk on set, he did admit to being painfully hungover to the point that everyone became aware of. After more than one stint in rehab, he managed to get clean, and then he became very passionate about helping other people who were struggling. Just last year, he revealed that he and Jennifer Aniston had stayed in each other's lives, and they remained in close contact. He said that it was actually Jennifer who confronted him first about his addictions during the filming of the show. Apparently, she approached him during a break and told him, "We know you're drinking." And looking back on that moment, Matthew thought that it was very scary, because in his own mind, he thought he was doing a perfectly fine job of hiding his habits from his co-stars. But at a certain point, they all knew that he was in trouble, and they did their best to support him. Number 8, Lisa Kudrow sued the show. Lisa Kudrow's manager Scott Howard sued her in 2008, year after she ended her contract with him, and 4 years after Friends ended. Howard claimed that Lisa owed him residuals for the reruns of Friends and other projects that she had worked on while under his management, to the tune of 10% of everything that she got. He stopped paying him when the contract was dissolved and argued that the 10% was only payable when he was managing her. Eventually, he won the case in 2014, and the judge awarded him $1.6 million. Of course, for someone who earned $1 million per episode for the final seasons of Friends, that figure wouldn't have put too much of a dent in her bank account. In a statement, Lisa's attorney said, "The jury's verdict is merely one step in the legal process. This case will ultimately be resolved at the appellate level. Mrs. Kudrow has faith in the judicial system, and she believes that the eventual outcome of this contractual dispute will be in her favor." In a statement of his own, Scott Howard's attorney said, "What generally happens now with unsophisticated actress clients is they overpay for filing a frivolous appeal that has no chance for success. So this legal battle got extremely messy in the end, and it must have been embarrassing to be a part of." Number 7, David Schwimmer went into hiding. As we know, David struggled with the fame that came from being such a huge hit at such a young age. Of the main 6 actors in Friends, he's the one who has shied away from the limelight the most. Although he continued to work after the show ended, he spent many years preferring to do voice work, directing, producing, and has been candid about struggling to find a way to continue acting as he's such a huge celebrity. He said, "It was pretty jarring and it messed with my relationships with other people in a way that took years. I need to kind of adjust to and become comfortable. It made me want to hide under a baseball cap and not be seen. So I was trying to figure out, how do I be an actor in this new world, in this new situation?" Friends was such a huge hit from the moment it premiered that it didn't just bring fame to its stars, it brought a mega level of fame that is hard to understand. For David, it was just too hard to deal with. So much so that it didn't just affect him, but his relationships and other people as well. He was also an actor who, as a part of his craft, liked to be anonymous and observe people out in the world. But of course, he simply could not do that anymore once he reached that certain level of success. Number 6, Matt LeBlanc was arrested. Before he became famous, Matt was already getting used to that crazy party lifestyle that most people associate with being a celebrity. After Friends was finished, he admitted that he was arrested for drunk driving twice. He said, "When I was young and stupid, I wasn't driving fast, just crooked. This came up when he was cast as one of the hosts of the new Top Gear, and fans were not sure whether a history of reckless driving was a good thing when it came to presenting a show about cars." Matt dismissed the incidents as the product of his age, although he has said that he's grateful the press never got a hold of his mugshots. While his drunk driving record happened before fame and fortune came to him, he also got into some pretty dark times when it came to dealing with his newfound fame. He nearly had a nervous breakdown due to the intensity of working on Friends, especially when the show came to an end. Speaking about that time, Matt said that for years and years he barely left the house because he was so burnt out. He wanted not to have a schedule and not to have to be anywhere. Luckily, he was in a position financially to be able to do that with all of his savings, but of course his agent was not too happy. Matt said that was a very dark time for him, and it even led to a nervous breakdown. Number 5. Jennifer Aniston's wedding. While not every cast is close off screen, the cast of Friends was known for being friends in real life, as well as having a huddle before each episode started filming and negotiating their salaries as a team. The cast were often photographed out and about together, and they talked in interviews about how close they remained, even after the filming ended. I mean, Jennifer Aniston is even godmother to Courtney Cox's daughter. But in 2015, when she married Justin Theroux, she didn't invite any of her male co-stars to the ceremony. It was a small wedding with only 70 guests, but it did include Courtney and Lisa. Matthew Perry said that he was surprised he wasn't invited, but he was still very happy for the couple, despite the awkwardness of rejection. Hopefully though, he didn't take too much offense, considering that Jennifer didn't even invite her own mother to her wedding with Brad Pitt in 2000. In an interview with Ellen in 2018, she opened up about why she went years without talking to her mother Nancy Dow, saying, quote, "She was critical, she was very critical of me. Because she was a model, she was beautiful, magnificent, I wasn't, I never was." She added that her mother was very unforgiving and would often hold long grudges. They ended up reuniting several years later, and by Jen's marriage to her second husband Justin in 2015, they were finally on speaking terms. But the funny thing is, Nancy still wasn't invited to that wedding either. Number 4. David's neighbors hated him. Even stars have feuds with their neighbors, and David Schwimmer is no exception. In 2010, the star bought a property in the East Village townhouse from 1852, and of course the land that it stood on. But he decided that rather than renovate it to keep up the facade, he would just tear the whole thing down and start fresh. It's something that a lot of property developers are known for doing, but it's never really a popular decision. As a result, an anonymous neighbor left a message for him that was too big to ignore. For some reason, they decided it would really upset him if they spray painted in huge letters on the construction site fence. They wrote the words, "Ross is not cool," which is both hilarious and kind of genius because it actually echoed a storyline from the show, where Ross moves into a new building and becomes enemies with the neighbors by not chipping in for the maintenance man's retirement gift, which kind of goes to show you that life really does imitate art. There's no saying how David reacted to this, but you can imagine that he wouldn't be too pleased that the construction site had graffiti. Matthew's extreme anxiety. Matthew Perry admitted 2 years ago that he suffered from anxiety, which often came when he was trying to be as funny as he could in front of the live studio audience while they were filming Friends. The admission came up during the HBO Max Friends reunion with Jennifer Aniston, Courtney Cox, Lisa Kudrow, Matt LeBlanc, and David Schwimmer. Matthew said that trying to be great made him extremely nervous, and his co-stars at the reunion said they never had any idea that he was suffering on set because he always delivered such a fabulous performance while being seemingly at ease. He said, "To me, I felt like I was going to die if they didn't laugh. And it's not healthy for sure, but I would sometimes say a line and they wouldn't laugh, and I would sweat and just go into convulsions if I didn't get the laugh I was supposed to get. I would freak out." His co-star Lisa was shocked to hear that. She said that Matthew was always such a cool cucumber, and he was one of the best on set, always delivering a line well as he played Chandler. Even though he never said anything to his co-stars back then, he felt this way every single night. And as we know now, his time on Friends was significantly impacted by his addiction. Memoir controversy. One surprise takeaway from Matthew Perry's autobiography was his apparent feelings towards Keanu Reeves, after he repeatedly questioned why other actors die while Keanu is still alive. Quote, "Why is it that original thinkers like River Phoenix and Heath Ledger die, but Keanu Reeves still walks among us?" Upon learning that another former co-star, Chris Farley, had died, he wrote, "I punched a hole through Jennifer Aniston's dressing room wall when I found out." And in the next line he wrote, "Keanu Reeves still walks among us." Matthew would later apologize for the comments and then release a statement saying, "I'm actually a big fan of Keanu. I just chose a random name, my mistake. I apologize." But that wasn't it at all. There was also a lot of other interesting admissions in his memoir. Another thing he also revealed is that he asked out Jennifer Aniston before filming Friends. He said that the two of them were the only Friends stars who knew each other before the show, having met 3 years before through mutual acquaintances. In one part of the book he wrote, "I was immediately taken by her. How could I not be? And liked her. I got the sense that she was intrigued too, and maybe it was going to be something." Safe to say that fans were more than shocked by that revelation. And number 1, everyone was scared of Matt LeBlanc. Now Joey is far from a scary guy, but when Matt LeBlanc was first cast in the role, some of the other cast members were a little bit afraid of him. This fear was based off of what they knew about Matt himself. The fact that he was raised by a mechanic and had done a stint as a male model as well, and had done a stint as a male model, as well as what they knew about the character of Joey, who is known as a very forward womanizer. Jennifer Aniston in particular remembers being intimidated before she met him herself. She said, "I was scared of that type of guy. He thinks it's very funny now, and actually he can sit down and comfort me just like Courtney or Lisa could." So it's a good thing that Matt turned out to be just as much of a sweetheart as Joey was, despite a slightly rocky start.
Number 10. His final words. The first police officer at the scene when Tupac passed away revealed in 2014 what the very last words he ever spoke were. Last words are a defining moment in our lives, the final sentence that leaves our lips before we vanish. Sometimes it's lovely and meaningful, but as you may expect, Tupac's final words were anything but peaceful. The officer who heard these words kept them to himself for years, only revealing what they were almost 20 years later. The officer explained that Tupac took a deep breath to get the words out, and he opened his eyes. According to the former sergeant from Las Vegas Police Department, his final words were, "F you," only he said more than just a letter. A very Tupac way to go out of this world, the officer felt the need to withhold the information while an investigation was taking place. They didn't want the headlines to read, "Final words F you," instead they wanted to make it known that the case was serious and that they were on top of it. Now in 2023, the case is reopened and there might be some closure, but that has yet to come. Speaking of which, number 9, who ended his life? If you're watching this entry, you are more than familiar with Tupac Shakur and how he met his end. Almost a week after being blasted by an unidentified assailant in his own SUV, he passed away on September 13th, 1996. He was only 25 at the time, and thanks to his very public feud with fellow artist Biggie Smalls, his passing led to years of rumors and speculation as to who really did the deed. 6 months following his passing, Biggie was caught slaying another person in a very eerily similar fashion. The evidence was pointing to the artist, and the only person who could truly point the finger was Shakur himself. However, a few days ago it was revealed that a man named Dwayne Davis was arrested on suspicion of slaying Tupac. The police suspected his involvement for years, but it wasn't until he started doing press that they had enough evidence to reopen the case. In 2009, he confessed to being in the area on camera, boasting about how close he was to the moment. In recent years, he's been painting a picture that he was front and center when things went down. While there has been no conviction just yet, the officers involved are confident that they have caught the man responsible for taking down a man considered to be one of the greatest of all time. Number 8. He wanted to act. While not known for his time on the silver screen, one of Tupac's main goals in life was to have his face on the cover of a movie poster. Well, that dream came true in 1992 thanks to the film Juice, a crime drama featuring several big-wig actors like Sam Jackson. The film was a critical darling with a little bit of everything for both fans of Tupac and fans of the crime thriller genre. In the few years before his passing, Tupac starred in a handful of other projects, movies like Poetic Justice, Above the Rim, and Gridlocked being the most lucrative. Despite his presence in the world of music, his public feuds and fallouts, he was able to get his face on a poster and people actually really liked it. Now, I'm not a big Tupac guy, in case that wasn't obvious, but it's cool that he got the chance to do his thing before someone decided that he shouldn't be around anymore, and I just kind of wanted to talk about it. Number 7, relationship to Jada Pinkett Smith. Decades after Tupac's passing, people still had questions about his relationship to Miss Pinkett Smith. Rumors had been circulating with some claiming that Jada may have had a hand in what happened. Well, while doing an interview on Sway Universe, she weighed in on her relationship with Tupac. Jada said that when she first met Tupac, she was a purveyor of narcotics, so to speak, continuing to explain that this was how they first bonded. She clarified that something really terrible made her leave the world behind, but she had already introduced Shakur to the scene. As As she got out, he got deeper in. She claimed that they were close for many years, even claiming to have paid a bail of $100,000 after Tupac was held for possible mistreatment charges. Now, what makes their relationship more questionable is Will Smith expressing his jealousy towards the late musician. Will claimed that while things never got physical, their love for each other was legendary. The interview only made it seem like Jada had a ton of skeletons in her closet that were yet to be revealed, so we shall see how things go. Number 6. His last name means thankful. A fun fact about Tupac Shakur is the meaning of his last name. Tupac was born in Brooklyn, New York to members of the Black Panther Party. Now, if you don't know what that is, take a history class. His first name, Tupac, came from the 18th century Peruvian revolutionary Tupac Amaru II, whose name meant shining serpent. Amaru II led the largest rebellion in Spanish colonial history. Though the indigenous uprising was unsuccessful and he was executed as a consequence, the revolutionary became a mythical figure in Peruvian struggle for independence, as well as the inspiration for several Spanish American causes and beyond. And Shakur is an Arabic word for thankful. So, shining and thankful were this man's first and last name. Legendary. Number 5. His love of Shakespeare. So in doing research for this video, I found a ton of fun facts about Tupac that have nothing to do with dark secrets or anything, so let's talk about some of those for a minute. For starters, Tupac was a massive fan of William Shakespeare. While he was attending the Baltimore School for the Arts, Tupac was a well-known thespian. According to Tupac himself, he just loved this guy, claiming that Shakespeare wrote some of the most raw stories of all time, and then saying that Romeo and Juliet was some hardcore stuff. Before his passing, Tupac even claimed that Shakespeare was one of his main inspirations growing up. He attempted to create music that discussed the human condition, and he wanted to showcase what a man in his situation was capable of. As life went on, he poured his heart and soul into his lyrics, just like Willie Shakespeare. Number 4, he knew about the holograms in 1993. Oddly enough, holograms are becoming a real thing that is just kinda normal. I was at a festival over the summer and there were just logos floating in midair, spinning in 3D. It hurt my brain, but in a good way. However, back in 2012, a hologram was unique and new. In comes Snoop Dogg with special guest hologram Tupac. Snoop was headlining Coachella in 2012, where he sang a duet with the holographic Shakur live on stage, also joined by Dr. Dre. The lifelike hologram sparked some pretty mixed reactions, varying from, hey, that's pretty cool, to, like zoinks, it's a monster! A ton of people thought it was so real that surely Tupac was alive, and he offered himself up for a full body scan. However, one darker rumor that may never be proven is that Tupac knew about holograms existing in 1993. This is a popular conspiracy theory online, okay? It's not my personal opinion. I just thought it may be fun to chat about holograms possibly existing in the early 90s. According to a ton of online forums, not only is Tupac alive on an island somewhere, but he is also the keeper of government knowledge. Whether he knew back in the day or not is one thing, but the way his hologram moves makes the world think that he must have scanned his body before he passed, so that the digital copy of him would exist for all time. Number 3, Snoop Dogg. Tupac and Snoop Dogg had a very public feud when they first met, but they were eventually able to move past their differences, squash their beef, and Snoop Dogg has gone on record telling the world there is nothing but love between them. Their friendship may be discussed a lot, but we haven't covered it here on BTS before, so let's give it a little chat. Snoop was very close to Tupac before his passing, and in recent years, when asked about Shakur in interviews, Snoop gets a little bit emotional and gets deep into it. During one particular appearance on Logan Paul's podcast, Snoop told a story of visiting Tupac in the hospital in the final days before his passing. At the time, both of them were signed to the same record label and had recently collaborated together on 2 of America's Most Wanted. At the time Tupac was in hospital, they were not on the greatest of terms thanks to some personal drama, but that didn't stop Snoop from telling his buddy how much he loved him. Tupac was unconscious, so there was never a real sense of closure for Snoop, but he's very thankful to have had the time to speak to his buddy one last time. Number 2, his net worth. Tupac was a major player in the music industry, still considered to be one of the greatest of all time to this day. Despite passing away in 1996, his music was still being edited and released after his passing. Dozens of albums have been released over the years, but one thing that is still unconfirmed is just how much Tupac was actually worth before he passed away. A majority of his music was released following his passing, with only a handful being major hits while he was still alive. Unfortunately, he was taken out way before he was able to properly enjoy his success and his new bank account. Sure, you can Google Tupac net worth and it shows you a number, but the real number will always be unknown. Tupac's the only person who knows what money he had set aside, maybe hidden in a drawer or in a mattress, and he's the only one who knows what his most prized possession really was. So far as we know, he had a good chunk when he passed, but for all we know, that amount could be immeasurable. And at number 1, the truth. If you made it this far into the list, I just want to say thank you for sticking around. I really hope you've learned a little something along the way. Not much to learn in this video, but still, good job getting here. Taking the top spot on this list is, of course, the truth, because despite the police opening an investigation and having a suspect in custody, the only person who could give a detailed walkthrough of the night that Tupac was taken out is Tupac. Only he can describe the person who took him down, the exact scenarios that may have led to the drive-by, and so much more. Number 10. Unheard song covers. Over her career, Tina Turner has written and performed dozens of original songs that are still popular to this day. Much like a large portion of musicians back in the day though, she took time to perform covers of songs from other artists. She performed a rendition of Let's Dance with David Bowie, covered Elton John's The Snitch Is Back, and several others over the years. Tina retired from performing in the early 2010s, and since then there's been a massive slew of successful songs that the artists totally should have covered. What would Tina Turner's version of Poker Face have sounded like? Did she ever want to do a cover of Uptown Funk with Bruno Mars? There will never be a Land Down Under What's Love Got to Do With It mashup. We have to imagine that Tina was keeping track of current music trends, and she almost certainly kept like a little book of names of people that she wanted to collaborate with. I think we can all agree the afterlife is going to have an epic playlist going 24/7. Number 9. Tina Turner toys. In 2021, Tina Turner was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame again, this time as an individual though, as she was previously inducted into the hall alongside of her former husband and musical partner Ike Turner. Another honor came that year though in the creation of Tina's very own Barbie doll. The doll boasts Tina's iconic hairstyle as well as her on-point fashion sense. This doll looks like it's going to burst into song and kick the night away, but we can only imagine that this wasn't the first time she tried to capitalize on her fame with a toy. Throughout the 1970s and 80s, I was not alive yet, but I did grow up with a lot of the toys from that era. If it was on TV or in the mainstream, it seemed to have some kind of product to go along with it. With Tina's career kicking off strong around the early 70s, it would have made perfect sense for her record company to release Tina Turner dolls, or some kind of like a sing-along kit. For all we know, those products were pitched, but met with negative results. And now we'll never know if somewhere out there sits a prototype for a Tina Turner talking teddy. I'm writing that down, that's good. Number 8. Smart shopper. In her youth, Tina found a home at Club Manhattan, a music venue in Tennessee. It was there that she met rock and roll pioneer and future ex-husband Ike Turner. Ike and Tina were together for a very long time, and as we know now, their relationship was filled with physical altercations, mental and control. By the mid-1970s, they had finally split after an altercation in Dallas broke Tina's limits. Following their split, Tina began giving her solo career a shot. Despite the success of her time on stage with Ike, she was left with next to nothing following the divorce. In her HBO documentary, she tells the audience that when Ike left, she had 36 cents in her pocket and a gas station credit card. To care for her children and put food on the table, Tina would collect food stamps and even clean houses. As someone who's witnessed the work of a single mother firsthand, seriously, my sister is a rock star, they tend to get pretty good at smart shopping. In 1983, Turner's solo career turned around after gaining some traction following the release of her cover of Al Green's Let's Stay Together, which soared to the top 5 R&B charts in the States and in the UK. This means that between 1976 and 1983, Tina was making life work, and we can only imagine the tips and tricks she must have learned over the years to make life as a single mama a second-hand emotion. I assume that means easy. I don't know for sure. It sounds good. Number 7, her vocal warm-ups. There are 2 things we can agree on in this world. Number 1, the moon is actually a government satellite, and number 2, Tina Turner has an incredible voice. Tina has been serenading our eardrums since taking her first breath into the microphone when she started singing at her local church in Nutbush, Tennessee. That is a rough name for a town. Her voice is always on point, but she never actually shared her warm-up routine with anybody. With such a powerful voice at your disposal, the process of prepping it for hours of usage must be intense. As a theater kid, I know for a fact that vocal warm-ups are essential to a clear and concise performance. I also know that you shouldn't eat dairy before a big show, but they still gave us pizza before everything when we went on, so who knows. We wish we could have learned what she did to prep such an iconic voice. Was there tea involved, or was it more like Sharpay in High School Musical, you know? Brr, brr, ma. Never know. Number 6. Skincare routine. Tina was taken from us at the age of 83 after spending over 50 years on stage. Now, most musicians begin to show their age after only a few years of touring, but Tina's skin stood still. Up until the day she passed, Tina was a beautiful woman. Somehow at the age of 83, she looked like she was a slightly older version of her 40-year-old self. If there is one thing we wish was revealed in her HBO documentary Tina, it would be her beauty secrets. Not only is Tina herself famous and beautiful, but her legs are considered their own separate being. She famously kicks and swings so much during her shows that we're convinced her legs have a mind and personality of their own. Even in her 80s, we're sure Tina was kicking and singing all the way to the end, but seriously, how did you look so good for that long? Number 5. Missed film opportunities. In case you weren't aware, there was a little film franchise back in the day starring Mel Gibson called Mad Max. He played the titular Max as we followed his journey through a desert wasteland where gas is the only currency we care about. In the franchise's third installment, Tina Turner was cast to act alongside Mel as Auntie Entity. Not only did she deliver a solid performance for her first real acting gig, but she also dropped a killer song for the flick called We Don't Need Another Hero. Her appearance on screen was a fun surprise for Mad Max fans, but it left us craving more. We have to imagine that she received other offers over the years for film roles, but what? When? Why? The idea of Tina Turner having a career on the big screen isn't outside of the realm of possibility, as historically musicians have been able to make similar moves with positive receptions. Post Malone is famous for his music, but did you know that he's been acting lately and he's doing like a really good job at it? Mark Wahlberg started out as a rapper named Mackie Mac, and now he's in the Transformers universe. And Ice Cube made a trilogy of successful comedies in the Friday franchise. The examples are endless, and there are so many iconic characters that Tina could have played over the years. Just imagine if Tina had popped up in a Marvel movie, our minds would have been blown. Number 4. Substance use. Tina's ex-husband, Ike, was an absolutely horrible human being. Throughout his entire relationship to Tina, Ike was being aggressive and physical behind the scenes. While the couple seemed to be happy together on stage, the reality was Tina hated being with him and he controlled most of her early career. So much so that the name Tina Turner was actually trademarked by Ike as another form of control. Over the years, details have surfaced about Ike's long history with substances and no-no juice, and they're hard to hear. Thankfully, Tina got out of that marriage and Ike was sentenced to prison for 18 months for possessing no-no snow. In fact, he was serving that sentence when himself and Tina were inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 1991. While Tina was able to get free of Ike's clutches, the reality is she was stuck with a terrible man for a long time, and famously that has led people to do terrible things to cope with the stress or anxiety. Tina talked about a truly dark time in her life and mental health in her documentary, where she attempted to end her own life following the revelation that Ike was cheating on her with multiple women. But this is just one instance that we know of. Tina didn't talk about Ike much, so the idea that she may have had more stories to share is likely, but unfortunately we will never know for sure. Number 3. An affair. In the HBO documentary about her life, Tina discusses the topic of infidelity and loyalty along with the specifics of her relationship with Ike Turner. As we know now, Ike was cheating on Tina with several women throughout their relationship, but it appears that Tina herself may have had some extramarital affairs as well. During the documentary, Tina mentioned that she has not had one love affair that was genuine and long-lasting. Okay, hold up, does that mean that she did have affairs, they just weren't with anyone that she loved? It would make sense that Tina would seek love from another man, considering just how cruel and abrasive Ike really was. While there's never been a confirmation of Tina's infidelity, the way she talks about her love life in reference to loveless affairs makes us think that she's had some secret lovers in the past, and we'll never know. Well, not lovers, more like acquaintances, according to her. Number 2. Ancient wisdom. Tina spent the majority of her youth singing in church choirs and at local music venues. As she got older, she only grew more and more talented, and apparently her religious views grew as well. Towards the end of her life, Tina adhered to the teachings of the Soka Gakkai International, the largest Buddhist organization in the world, consisting of about 12 million practitioners. They exist under the belief that peace of the land depends on transforming the heart and mind of one individual at a time. Tina spent a long time living in this lifestyle as she was was introduced to the concept by a friend in the 1970s. Tina found a lot of peace in her meditation sessions. But did she also find the answers to the universe? Tina had been through so much in her life, romantically, emotionally, family-wise, yet somehow she not only remained positive, but she was eventually able to forgive those who caused her harm in the past. The calm and comforting manner in which Tina existed makes us think that during those meditation sessions, some kind of door was unlocked in her mind, allowing her to release all the problems in her life and move on. I want that. Can I have that, please? Number 1. Tried to have Ike taken out. Phil Spector was one of the most prolific record producers of the early 1960s. He quickly recognized the potential in Tina, but noticed there were some outside issues holding her back. Specifically, her boy toy Ike was kind of a Phil knew about the rocky relationship and set a plan in motion to have Ike dealt with. In the documentary Tina, it was revealed that Phil once paid someone to distract Ike while Tina was in studio sessions to just get him out of the room and allow Tina to do her thing without the stress and pressure of Ike being right there. While the doc confirmed this one story, Spector was a man who had friends in high places. If he wanted someone taken care of, it was gonna happen. Maybe he hired this person to get a feel for Ike before deciding if he really needed to take him out for good. Tina worked with Spector on her career milestone collaboration, River Deep Mountain High, and while at first it was a major flop, it went on to be one of the most iconic songs she's ever performed. Look at that. Take a person you hate out of the equation and there's nowhere to go but up.
Coming in at number 10 today, we have the secret grandchild. On Sunday at Lisa Marie's funeral service, Riley Keough's husband, Ben Smith Peterson, would reveal that the couple had welcomed a secret child last year. The stuntman announced the news while he was reading a letter on behalf of his wife at the memorial service. In the letter, Ben would say, "I hope I can love my daughter the way you love me, the way you love my brothers and my sisters. Thank you for giving me strength, my heart, my empathy, my courage, my sense of humor, my manners, my temper, my wildness, and my tendency. I'm the product of your heart, my sisters are the product of your heart, my brother is the product of your heart." Since the memorial service, a representative has confirmed the birth of Riley and Ben's daughter, and the couple's daughter is the first grandchild of Lisa Marie and the first great-grandchild of Elvis and Priscilla. While everyone was shocked to learn that the Presley family kept a child a secret, Riley's tribute to her mother would bring the whole room to tears as they remembered Lisa for her strength and love. Number 9, we have the childhood message. Before Elvis Presley passed away in an interview, the king would describe with glee how much of a terror Lisa Marie was. But what many didn't know is that she left behind a hidden graffiti message in a secret drawer. During a live virtual tour with Graceland archivist Angie Marchese, she would point out a secret drawer that was located in the corridor next to the kitchen on the way into the jungle room from the front door. In fact, it's right where fans walk during the regular in-person tour of Graceland. During the interview, Angie would open the drawer, and when it was open, you could see written inside was Lisa Marie's graffiti, which read, "Lisa's home, Graceland," with a smiley face. Also inside the drawer was a 1993 phone book, which seems quite random, but Elvis historian revealed it was owned by the king's aunt Delta May, who lived at Graceland until that very year. Interestingly, all kinds of items remained in the drawers at Graceland, just as they were left behind by those who were living in the mansion. For example, the plates and glasses are still kept in the kitchen cupboards, and is the china in the drawers in the dining room. Additionally, in a drawer in the music room, quite randomly features a samurai sword that was gifted to Elvis by a Japanese officer. Lisa Marie very much saw Graceland as her family home, and the china she used was kept in the drawers in her aunt Delta's bedroom, which is connected to the kitchen, and it isn't on the tour. Hey my little peaches, are you liking this video so far? So don't forget to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. Coming number 8, we have her connection with John Travolta. John Travolta and Lisa Marie Presley had known each other for decades, but before Travolta and Presley were friends, Lisa Marie was nothing more than a fan of the rising celebrity. After the passing of Lisa's father Elvis, Priscilla was looking to bring some joy into her daughter's life and used her Hollywood connections to arrange a meeting between the two. However, before rumors started to begin that Travolta and Presley dated, when the two met, Presley was only 11 and Travolta was in his mid-20s. However, there was an apparent connection between Priscilla and Travolta, and it is said their connection apparently led to 3 to 4 secret dates that didn't go any further. However, it was during this time Travolta would speak to Priscilla about the Church of Scientology, as he has been a member since 1975, and extended an invitation to Priscilla to come and see what it was all about. Apparently, Priscilla found it to be very welcoming, and she joined in 1977, and as a result, Lisa Marie had no choice but to join the institution as well. Lisa Marie would then be placed into obedience therapy as a young child, as she was in a bad mental condition after she lost her father, and in her weak moment of great loss, John persuaded her to come in. Number 7. Trauma. Before Lisa Marie passed away, she revealed that her last memory of discovering Elvis after he had passed away in the bathroom of his famous Memphis home on August 16th, 1977. Lisa would confess that she didn't like to talk about it. In her confessions, she would say it was 4 a.m. I was supposed to be asleep, but actually he found me. Lisa Marie was in her room with her mother Priscilla when Elvis arrived with them a couple minutes later and kissed her goodnight. This would be the last time she would see her father alive. Later, when she went to see her father, she would be attended by her friend Ginger, and discovering her father had passed away, Lisa Marie would be terrified, and she ran to the phone to call Elvis's ex-girlfriend, Linda Thompson, who was not at Graceland at the time. Lisa Marie would be left feeling traumatized, as she was her daddy's princess and she truly was loved by him. That was a huge trauma for her. Lisa empathetically acted out as a child, and then she would begin to take substances so she could forget the agony of losing her father. Number 6. Overwhelming Priscilla. After Lisa Marie started to act out to numb the pain of losing her father, she began to overwhelm her mother Priscilla in the process. Priscilla would get exasperated with her because she was a rebellious kid, and Priscilla knew that she was not a kid who believed in rules and boundaries. Lisa Marie is said to have been a free spirit, as she would do what she wanted whenever she wanted, and this drove Priscilla nuts because she didn't want to see what happened to Elvis happen to her daughter. Priscilla felt like she was locked in a game of Mortal Kombat with her daughter, and the relationship was actually really hostile for the longest time. The two were just not aligned at all. There was no harmony. Their relationship of welfare was described as living in a war zone that would lead to Lisa Marie to do substances to get away from her misery, as she was feeling deep inside her. That's why it's being said that Priscilla is actually taking her daughter's passing really hard, as she still wasn't able to fully repair her relationship with her daughter before she passed away. Number 5. Power imbalance. Seems like Lisa Marie and her mother Priscilla Presley could never see eye to eye because there was too much of a power imbalance when it came to the two. It said that Priscilla had all the power. She was the mom after all, and Lisa Marie couldn't run away after her father's passing, as she was only 9 years old. So the only way she felt like she could stand her ground was to fight back, be rude, and disrespectful to her mother. Lisa Marie felt like this was her only option to feel happiness, was to be combative. And the more Lisa Marie started to act out and misbehave, the more and more her mother got worried. Eventually, by the age of 13 years old, Lisa would start experimenting with substances, and the more Lisa started to fight back so she could be released by her mother's control, the more Priscilla would try her own methods of control. Eventually, Priscilla would have no other choice but to join the Church of Scientology, and she would kick Lisa Marie out and force her to attend courses that Lisa Marie did not want to attend. Number 4. Obedience therapy. Lisa was only 11 years old when her mother Priscilla joined a cult-like religion which is known as Scientology. During her childhood years, she would be dropped off alone at the Scientology Center for hours of obedience therapy and purification rundowns. This would reportedly consist of hot sauna sessions, exercise, and taking vitamins. Lisa Marie had no choice but to attend the sessions, and it seemed anytime she would act up, she would be dropped off. The instructions from Priscilla to the church were to handle her and do whatever they wanted so her daughter would get back into line. Lisa had no choice, and she was forced into conversion therapy and obedience therapy sessions, as the church saw these as courses that were fit to her needs. This is something that should never be forced onto an 11-year-old, and yet Lisa Marie was forced to believe that something was wrong with her, and she had to attend these courses. Number 3. Michael Lockwood. While Lisa Marie Presley was embroiled into a ferocious custody battle with her ex-husband, she would accuse him of having hundreds of illegal images of younger people on his computer. While many have stated that Lisa Marie falsely accused him of this crime, it really makes you wonder if these crimes were never true, then why would she divorce her ex-husband, and why would the police always stay quiet about the issue, as they never confirmed if he was guilty or not guilty? It just all seems a little fishy. In the court filing at the time of her divorce, Lisa Marie Presley Presley would never detail exactly what she found at the time, but she would say she was very shocked, horrified, and it made her sick to her stomach. However, in the papers it would also be said that the Beverly Hills Police Department found 80 of Lockwood's devices during a raid on her home, and she added that the cops still had them and that they'd never been fully analyzed, and that she had no idea what else would be on those devices, but she was scared that there was more worse images and evidence on those unanalyzed devices. Number 2. 4 divorces. Sometimes it's hard to find love, and it's clear that Lisa Marie struggled with her whole life to truly find the one. In 2016, when news broke that Lisa Marie was ending her union with Michael Lockwood, unfortunately, this would be her 4th failed marriage. In 2007, Lisa Marie would explain her marital woes to Marie Claire when she said her first union with Danny Keough failed because she was really young and Danny had resented her because of who she was. She would then add that her marriage became a power struggle because it was hard for a man to be with a woman who is stronger and wealthy, and that's why she ditched Danny for Michael Jackson. However, she would then recall this being the biggest mistake of her life. As her rocky marriage to Nicolas Cage, she would state that marrying him was a wild flurry and a crazy idea that came with being young. As complicated as it all sounds, Presley eventually disunion from Michael Lockwood was arguably the toughest following their 10 years together. The exes were locked in horns in one of the most bitter custody and spousal support fights Hollywood has ever seen. And coming in number 1 today, we have Cruel to Nannies. Shortly after Lisa Marie gave birth to her beautiful twin girls, she acquired the help of nanny Christine White. According to TMZ, they would detail that Christine sued Lisa Marie because she felt like she was being overworked without proper compensation. The suit claimed that Christine was tasked with caring for the babies around the clock, and she even worked 7 days a week and was not granted breaks. By the following year, Christine would drop her case against Lisa Marie, but not before Presley countersued. In the lawsuit, Presley claimed that White was fired after breaking her contract and that she allegedly took over 165 unauthorized photos and videos of her children, which broke her confidentiality agreement. The case was ultimately dismissed, and although it's unclear if it was ever settled, Presley seemed to have the last word on the matter, as she claimed Christine's original lawsuit was born out of utter greed and revenge because Lisa Marie fired her.
Number 10. Angus Cloud. Angus portrayed the universally loved character Fez on the show Euphoria, acting as Rue's dealer, aka Zendaya. Over the summer, the Oakland Fire Department was called to his home in California, where he was found deceased. Angus was only 25 and had recently been suffering from the loss of his father, which a lot of people believe may have led to his passing. Cloud was set to star in several projects in the next few years, as his career had just started thanks to the success of Euphoria. Now, there was some confirmation on exactly what happened to Angus, but honestly, I just don't want to get into it. The details are pretty dark and gory, and the family did ask for privacy. Cloud had a long history with substance control issues, and that is part of the reason that he delivered such an incredible performance on the show, being able to tap into real-life traumas and use them for his character. Many believe he may have had some type of overdose following the passing of his father, but as I said, I don't want to get into it. I'm not going to make any jokes here or say anything to make light of this moment. This dude was an incredible performer, and from what I've been able to read, he was also just a genuinely wonderful person, so rest in peace, Angus. Number 9. Matthew Perry. The most recent tragedy to take place this year was the loss of Matthew Perry, one of the best parts of the show Friends. He did a lot of things in the world of comedy, and I personally know him best as the older version of Zac Efron from 17 Again, an underappreciated movie that definitely deserves a rewatch, and if you haven't seen it, just go watch it right now. Matthew was only 54 when he passed away. Hollywood was shaken to its core. His fellow actors from over the years took to social media to express their condolences and share their heartache. Paul Rudd said that working with Matthew on Friends was one of the best experiences of his career. Matthew's bright energy was on full display whenever he was with his fellow Friends crew. Paul claimed that the set was fueled with love and friendship, something that he was fortunate enough to be a part of for a couple of seasons as Phoebe's husband, Mike Hannigan. Zac Efron recently said that he would be honored to fulfill one of Matthew's final wishes, which was to have Zac play him in a biopic about his life. Zac also said that he would love to do it and pay tribute to the man that he had the utmost respect for. He said that Matthew was a mentor to him, someone that he saw as a man who overcame a ton of real-world hardships to create an impactful career. I'm still waiting for my next check so I can buy his audio audiobook that Matthew not only wrote, but he narrated himself. He was a truly bright star in the world, and he's going to be missed by everybody. Number 8, Lance Reddick. Good evening, Mr. Wick. Welcome to the Continental. Lance Reddick starred in many TV movies and made small appearances on sitcoms in his early days of acting, but he first broke onto the big screen starring as Anton Lafarge in 1998's Great Expectations, a modernization of Charles Dickens' classic story of the same name, following a painter in New York City pursuing his childhood love. The film starred Ethan Hawke in the lead role, Gwyneth Paltrow, Hank Azaria, Robert De Niro, but it was Lance Reddick that stole the show. He went on to star in several big budget projects over the years, eventually landing a role in the hit TV thriller series The Wire as Cedric Daniels. He starred alongside actors like Keanu Reeves, Denzel Washington, Channing Tatum, but the attention was always drawn to him for every moment he was on screen. Earlier this year, a congestive heart disease took Lance from the world at 61 years old. That's right, this man was in his 60s. Look at his face. Good job. Luckily for us, there were a couple of projects filmed before his passing, including the White Men Can't Jump reboot that's currently on Disney+, and he popped up in a trailer for the upcoming Percy Jackson series, also on Disney+. So if you're a fan, make sure you, get Disney+. Number 7, Paul Rubens. Another celebrity that we lost this year was Mr. Paul Rubens, who a lot of people know as the goofy bike enthusiast Pee Wee Herman. Paul first rose to fame thanks to his character of Pee Wee getting his own big movie in 1985, directed by Tim Burton. The movie was so successful that Pee Wee got a morning show on CBS called Pee Wee's Playhouse. Unfortunately, Paul's reputation was a little tainted in 1991 following an indecent exposure charge after he was caught feeding his geese at a movie theater. But it was the 90s. That wasn't even close to the worst thing to happen that year, and he quickly bounced back into the world of acting, starring in movies like Mystery Men and Blow alongside Johnny Depp. Paul had been fighting a long and difficult battle with cancer, something that nobody was aware of until his passing. Much like Chadwick Boseman, it seems that he just didn't want his final days to be spent surrounded by people preparing for him to go. Instead, he lived his life and went out on his own terms. And as someone who grew up with Pee Wee Herman, this one really stung. Number 6, Sinead O'Connor. Sinead has been serenading people with her voice for a long time, first releasing an album in 1987 called The Lion and the Cobra and charted across the globe. Since then, she had a steady career performing in concerts and on talk shows around the world, and in 1992 she was banned from Saturday Night Live for standing in front of a live audience and ripping up a photo of the Pope on stage. Now, there was a reason for this, as she was an activist and was simply trying to protest the Catholic Church because they were doing some pretty shady, gross stuff behind the scenes. Oh, did I say that they were? I mean that they are. The cause of Sinead passing has not been released to the public, and unfortunately many fans are claiming that it may have something to do with struggles with mental health in recent history, as well as her troubled past with family. Regardless of why or how, we are very sad to see another talented artist lost in 2023. Number 5, Jeff Beck. Jeff Beck was a British musician who first began rising to stardom in the early 1970s after forming the band Night Shift. Eventually that band broke up, but Beck went on to have an awesome solo career, eventually landing him 8 Grammy Award wins, the first being Best Rock and Roll Instrumental Performance for Escape, a song from the album Flash. That was to accompany the movie of the same name. While his name may not be familiar to you, his guitar licks most certainly are. Jeff has contributed his talent to several top charting songs over the years, including Bon Jovi's Blaze of Glory solo album. He played lead on Roger Waters' concept album Amused to Death, Red Shoes by Kate Bush, and so many more. In 1992, his former band The Yardbirds was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame and famously stated that he wasn't proud of a band that kicked him out. Beck continued to work as a solo artist right up till 2020 when he released a new single album in which he collaborated with Johnny Depp to cover John Lennon's song Isolation. The song came out only 1 month after the events of March 2020, so this cover really hit home for a lot of people. Beck passed away from a bacterial meningitis infection in January of this year, taking both his talent and his passion with him. Number 4, Tina Turner. She was simply the best, better than all the rest, and that is not an exaggeration. Tina Turner is considered one of the original queens of rock and roll. Between the early 1950s and the mid-2000s, Tina Turner was ripping her way through country after country, delivering song after song. What's Love Got to Do with It? Simply the Best, Acid Queen, and those are just some of the songs that we were gifted with during her time as a solo artist, before divorcing her evil ex, Ike Turner, who is a menace and I don't like him. The couple would perform together as Ike and Tina, but no one remembers that. They remember Tina. Tina's real name was Anna Mae Bullock. The name Tina was actually something that was forced on her by by Ike as a way of controlling her. As a lot of people know now, Ike was absolutely horrible to Tina and did things that I'm not gonna talk about, which is why after so many years of overcoming obstacle after obstacle, it crushed the world when Tina was taken from us at the age of 83 on May 24th of 2023. She'll always be remembered as a pure soul with a voice of gold, and we had so much respect for this woman. She took a name that was meant to bring her down and turned it into a legend. Number 3, David Crosby. While this last name sounds familiar to you, David shares no relation to the hockey legend Sidney Crosby, which is shocking because he had like 6 kids. You'd think one of them would be named Sidney and play hockey. David Crosby made up a third of the legendary folk rock group Crosby, Stills, Nash alongside fellow founders Stephen Stills and Graham Nash. After the trio performed together in 1968, they discovered their voices harmonized so well and decided to form a full-on band. The timing was perfect. David had just been asked to leave the Byrds, Stephen's band Buffalo Springfield had just broken up, and Nash left his band the Hollies the December prior to meeting his new bandmates. Eventually the trio branched out and invited Canadian treasure Neil Young to be the 4th member, performing as Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young. They were even a part of the first Woodstock Festival in 1969. At the end of a tour in the mid-70s though, the band split following some tension behind the scenes. They reconciled for the music and have gotten together a few times over the years, sometimes with Young, sometimes without. Throughout it all, David gave 100%, and the music showcased that effort. Unfortunately, earlier this year, Crosby fell ill with a lung infection and passed away in his sleep. Before passing, he had been inducted into the Hall of Fame with his fellow bandmates and will always be remembered for his killer pipes and his thick mustache. Number 2, Bob Barker. In August of this year, the world lost one of the greatest TV show hosts of all time, Bob Barker from The Price is Right. The longtime host of the popular game show passed away just shy of 100 years old. Considering the ages of many celebrities who passed away this year, especially on this list, Bob really deserves a lot of respect. This dude made it to 99, and in that time, he created a career for himself both as a TV host and just as a person in general. Bob made cameos in movies, he appeared on other shows to guest host, and of course was very adamant that we get our cats spayed and neutered. It's worth mentioning that Bob was also a massive animal rights advocate, using some of his money to support animal welfare organizations. So we really should have known more about that. That's pretty cool. And at number 1, Burt Bacharach. Now, my first introduction to Burt Bacharach was at the age of 8 years old when I was watching the movie Austin Powers International Man of Mystery. Austin and his date/fellow agent are enjoying dinner on a double-decker bus in London when Austin gestures, looks at the camera and says, "Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Burt Bacharach." Suddenly there's Burt Bacharach playing a massive piano on the back of a bus and singing, "What the world needs now is love, sweet love." Now this moment lives rent-free in my brain all day, every day, and has sparked the most random taste in music that I still have. Who is Lizzo? I don't even know. Give me some Engelbert Humperdinck any day of the week. It's the guy who did the Moon Knight song. That's okay. Of course, Burt was best known by many people for his musical chops. Now it's been said that Burt was one of the most important and influential figures in the pop music industry since the early 1950s. Over the years, Burt collaborated with several well-respected musicians like Tom Jones and Dusty Springfield. He received 6 Grammys, 3 Academy Awards, and 1 Emmy for his primetime special Singer Presents Burt Bacharach, a live TV taping in which Barbra Streisand appeared. They played music together, discussed their careers and favorite songs. It was great. Burt was tickling the keys till the day he passed, collaborating with many composers and lyricists over the years. He even composed and arranged an original score for a film called A Boy Called Poe at the age of 88 years old. In February of this year, Burt passed away at 94 and closed his piano for good. Between him, David, and Tina, heaven is going to have some pretty solid music this year, that is for sure. Number 10, Tina Turner. She was simply the best. Better than all of the rest. Tina Turner is considered one of the original queens of rock and roll. Between the early 1950s and the mid-2000s, Tina Turner was ripping her way through country after country, delivering hit after hit. What's love got to do with it? Simply the best, Acid Queen. And those are just some of the songs that were gifted to us during her time as a solo artist. Before divorcing her evil ex, Ike Turner, the couple would perform together as Ike and Tina. Tina's real name was Anna Mae Bullock, and the name Tina was actually forced on her by Ike as a way of controlling her. As many now know, Ike was an absolutely horrible person to Tina, and he did things that I can't talk about on this channel. Which is why, after so many years of overcoming obstacle after obstacle, it crushed the world when Tina was taken from us at the age of 83 on May 24th 4th in 2023. She will always be remembered as a pure soul with a voice of gold. We had so much respect for this woman. She took a name that was meant to bring her down and turned it into a legend. Number 9. Jerry Springer. Well, our guest today may be a little controversial, but what the heck. Words surely spoken many times by the man that they call Jerry Springer. A name that surely sparks the visual of a fight breaking out on stage and some low-grain cameras capturing it all in front of a live studio audience. The good old days of TV. He hosted The Jerry Springer Show from 1999 to 2016, broadcasting over 1,900 episodes for our viewing pleasure. For anyone that doesn't know, Jerry was known for bringing controversial figures on his show to either discuss or confront the situations surrounding their presence. He brought in men with white cloaks, people who married horses. The spectrum of his guests is wide, which is why his show was just so much fun to watch. It was sad when news broke of his death in 2023 following a long and strenuous battle with pancreatic cancer. Here's hoping that wherever he is, it's just not in the middle of an onstage brawl. Number 8. Angus Cloud. This is the most recent and honestly one of the most devastating entries on this list. Angus portrayed the universally loved character Fez on the show Euphoria, acting as Rue's dealer, aka Zendaya. This past Monday, the Oakland Fire Department was called to his home in California, where he was found deceased, and he had recently been suffering with the loss of his father, which many believe may have led to his passing. Cloud was set to star in several projects in the next few years, as his career had just started thanks to the success of Euphoria. While there is currently no confirmation on the exact cause of his passing, Cloud had a long history with substance control issues and is part of the reason that he delivered such an incredible performance on the show, being able to tap into his real life traumas and use them for his character. Many believe he may have had some type of overdose following the passing of father, but like I said, there is no confirmation. I'm not going to make any jokes here or say anything to make this a light moment. This guy was an incredible performer, and from what I've been able to read, he was genuinely a wonderful human being. So rest in peace, Angus. Number 7. Sinead O'Connor. Sinead has been serenading people with her voice for a long time, first releasing an album in 1987 called The Lion and the Cobra, and it charted across the globe immediately. Since then, she had a steady career performing in concerts and on talk shows around the world, and in 1992, she made TV history after being banned from Saturday Night Live for standing in front of a live audience and ripping up a photo of the Pope on stage. Now, there was a reason for this, because she was an activist and was simply trying to protest the Catholic Church because they were doing some gross, shady stuff behind the scenes. I'm sorry, did I say were? I meant are. The cause of Sinead passing has not been released to the public, but unfortunately many fans are claiming that it might have something to do with struggles with mental health in recent history, as well as her troubled past with her family. Regardless of why or how it happened, we are very sad to see another talented artist lost in 2023. Number 6. Paul Rubens. Another celebrity that was lost this past week was Mr. Paul Rubens, who many may know as the goofy bike enthusiast Pee Wee Herman. Paul first rose to fame thanks to his character of Pee Wee getting his own movie in 1985, directed by Tim Burton. The movie was so successful that Pee Wee got a morning show on CBS called Pee Wee's Playhouse. Unfortunately, Paul's reputation was slightly tainted in 1991 following an indecent exposure charge after he was feeding the geese at a movie theater. But it was the 90s, and that wasn't even close to the worst thing to happen that year, so he quickly bounced back into the world of acting and starred in movies like Mystery Men and Blow alongside Johnny Depp. Paul had been fighting a long and difficult battle with cancer, something that nobody was aware of until he passed. Much like Chadwick Boseman, it seems like he didn't want his final days to be spent surrounded by people who were prepared for him to go. Instead, he lived his life and he went out on his own terms. So, as someone who grew up with Pee Wee, that one stings. Number 5. Lance Reddick. Good evening, Mr. Wick. Welcome to the Continental. Lance Reddick starred in many TV movies and made small appearances on sitcoms in his early days of acting, but he first broke onto the big screen starring as Anton Lafarge in the 1998 film Great Expectations, which was a modernization of Charles Dickens' classic story of the same name, following a painter in New York City pursuing his childhood love. The film starred Ethan Hawke in the leading role, Gwyneth Paltrow, Hank Azaria, Robert De Niro, but it was Lance that stole the show, and he went on to star in several big-budget projects over the years, eventually landing a role on the hit TV thriller series The Wire as Cedric Daniels. He starred alongside actors like Keanu Reeves, Denzel Washington, Channing Tatum, but the attention was always drawn to him for every moment that he was on screen. Earlier this year, a congestive heart disease took Lance from the world at 61 years old. That's right, the man was only in his 60s. Like, look at him, that was great, good for him. Lucky for us, there was one movie left to be released following Lance's passing called White Men Can't Jump, and it is now available on Disney Plus with Lance starring as one of the main characters, Benji. So if you're missing him, check it out. Number 4. Richard Belzer. In the criminal justice system, the people are represented by two separate yet equally important groups: the police, who investigate crime, and the district attorneys, who prosecute the offenders. These are their stories. Chung-chung! This is the introduction to one of my father's favorite TV shows of all time, Law and Order. Since the day I was brought home, the legendary intro and song was constantly on my screen. I practically grew up with the Special Victims Unit and its team. Richard Belzer played John Munch, a retired detective who returns to the force as a sergeant assigned to the SVU. Richard played Munch for 326 episodes before the show was taken off air in 2016. That didn't mark the end of Richard's acting days, as he went on to star in the popular Robert De Niro pick The Comedian, in which he played a fictionalized version of himself. Fortunately for SVU fans, Richard passed away in February of this year, following years of respiratory and circulatory complications. Looks like crime in the afterlife will never go unpunished again, though. If there is crime, I don't know, do people still do that when they pass away? Number 3. David Crosby. While this last name sounds familiar, David shares no relation to the hockey legend Sidney, which is shocking because he has 6 kids. You would think that one of them would be a hockey player. David Crosby made up a third of the legendary folk rock group Crosby, Stills, Nash, alongside fellow founders Stephen Stills and Graham Nash. After the trio performed together in 1968, they discovered their voices harmonized well and decided that they needed to form a band and keep the good times going. The timing was perfect. David had just been asked to leave the Byrds, Stephen's band Buffalo Springfield had just broken up, and Nash left his band The Hollies the December prior to meeting his bandmates. Eventually, the trio branched out and invited Canadian treasure Neil Young to be the 4th member, performing as Crosby, Stills, Nash, and Young. They were even a part of the very first Woodstock Festival in 1969. At the end of a tour in the mid-70s, the band split following some tension behind the scenes. They reconciled for the music and have gotten together a few times over the years, sometimes with Young, sometimes without. Through it all, David gave 100% and the music showcased that effort. Unfortunately, earlier this year, Crosby fell ill with a lung infection and passed in his sleep. Before passing, he had been inducted into the Hall of Fame with his fellow bandmates and will always be remembered for his killer pipes and thick mustache. Number 2. Jeff Beck. Jeff Beck was a British musician who first began rising to stardom in the early 1970s after forming the band Night Shift. Eventually that band broke up, but Beck went on to have an awesome solo career, eventually landing him 8 Grammy Award wins, the first being Best Rock and Roll Instrumental Performance for Escape, a song from the album for Flash that was to accompany the movie of the same name. While his name may not be familiar to you, his guitar licks most certainly are. Jeff has contributed his talent to several top charting songs over the years, including Bon Jovi's Blaze of Glory solo album, and he played lead on Roger Waters' concept album Amused to Death, Red Shoes by Kate Bush, and just so many more. In 1992, his former band the Yardbirds was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and he famously stated that he wasn't proud of a band that kicked him out. Beck continued to work as a solo artist right up until 2020, when he released a new single album in which he collaborated with Johnny Depp to cover John Lennon's song Isolation. The song came out only 1 month after the events of March 2020, so this cover really hit home for a lot of people. Beck passed away from bacterial meningitis infection in January of this year, taking both his talent and his passion with him. And at number 1, Burt Bacharach. My first introduction to Burt was at the age of 8 when I watched the movie Austin Powers International Man of Mystery. Austin and his date/fellow agent are just enjoying dinner on a double-decker bus in London when Austin gestures and says, "Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Burt Bacharach." And suddenly there is Burt, playing just a massive piano and singing, "What the world needs now is love, sweet love." Ooh, this moment has lived rent-free in my brain ever since and sparked the random taste in music that I still have to this day. Who is Lizzo? Give me Engelbert Humperdinck any day. Of course, Burt was best known by many people for his musical chops, and it's been said that Burt was one of the most important and influential figures in the pop music industry since the early 1950s. 1950s. Over the years, Burt collaborated with several well-respected musicians like Tom Jones and Dusty Springfield, and he received 6 Grammys, 3 Academy Awards, and 1 Emmy for his primetime special Singer Presents Burt Bacharach, a live TV taping in which Barbra Streisand appeared and they played music, discussed their careers, and sang their favorite song. Burt was tickling the keys till the day he passed, collaborating with many composers and lyricists over the years. He even composed and arranged an original score for a film called A Boy Called Poe at the age of 88 years old. In February of this year, Burt passed away at the age of 94 and closed his piano lid for good. But between him, David, and Tina, heaven's gonna have some pretty solid music this year.
Number 10, Matthew Perry's pickleball partner. It's been reported that Matthew played pickleball almost every day with a female friend, and she noticed that he had been fatigued over the last week and appeared tired on the day he died. Matthew's pickleball partner has told how she spotted scary warning signs that he was unwell just hours before his death in his hot tub. Extra host Billy Bush revealed on Instagram that his partner spotted signs he wasn't quite right. He wrote, "I spoke to the woman he played with this morning and every morning. She is in shock. She adored Matt. She said she had been fatigued today and over the past week. A little more than usual too. He played for 1 hour and then he went home." As we know, the 54-year-old star was found dead in his LA home after reportedly drowning in his hot tub. Law enforcement claims 911 dispatched responders at around 4 p.m. local time after a report of cardiac arrest. When they arrived on the scene, they began a water rescue protocol after Matthew had seemingly drowned. At the time, it was reported that there were no narcotics on the scene and cops did not suspect any foul play, which many believe adds to the tragedy of his passing. Number 9, last photo ever taken. Matthew Perry last posted on Instagram 5 days before his sudden death at age 54. He shared a nighttime photo of himself inside a hot tub on Monday, October 23rd. In the caption, he wrote, "Oh, so warm water swirling around makes you feel good? I'm Mattman." If you didn't know, Mattman is a name he'd used in recent days while posting on social media, where he would often include references and images related to Batman. In the past, he said he felt a connection to the comic book hero, a wealthy but damaged man who used his grief at losing his parents as a child into helping others. He said he felt that he was also helping others by speaking out about his struggles with addiction. In fact, Matthew recently posted a picture of Batman's logo illuminated in red lights with the caption, "Sleep well everybody, I've got the city tonight." The day before the hot tub photo, he posted video of the moon with the caption, "Do you understand what I'm trying to tell you? I'm Mattman." As recently as Tuesday, he posted on Twitter saying, "Let's make stigmas a stigma. I'm Mattman, hashtag mental health." But it wasn't all cryptic messages. On October 15th, he shared a rare photo of himself with his father, actor John Bennett Perry. In the caption, he wrote, "Here is me and my father John, both holding a beverage." So it seemed like he was just sharing happy memories there. Number 8, Jennifer Aniston's warning. The actress's forward warning to her friend's co-star Matthew Perry amid his alcohol addiction has now resurfaced after his sudden death. As we know, Matthew rose to fame for his role as Chandler Bing on the hit 90s sitcom alongside Jennifer, Courtney Cox, Lisa Kudrow, Matt LeBlanc, and David Schwimmer. And just last year, he revealed that he and Jennifer had stayed in each other's lives and remained in close contact. He said she was the one that reached out the most. "You know, I'm really grateful to her for that." He went on to reveal that it was just Jennifer who confronted him first about his addictions during the filming of the show, when the symptoms of his problem were just too obvious to ignore. Apparently, she approached him during a break in filming and told him, "We know you're drinking." Looking back on that moment, Matthew thought it was scary. At that point in his life, he said he should have been the toast of the town, but instead he was in a dark room meeting with nothing but dealers and he felt completely alone. In his own mind, he thought he was doing a perfectly fine job hiding his habits from his co-stars, but at a certain point, they all knew he was in trouble and did their best to support him. Number 7, his co-stars were worried. Matthew spoke about the moment that all of his friends' co-stars found out about it. Matthew said they were all understanding and they were patient with him. Quote, "It's like penguins. Penguins in nature, when one is sick or one is very injured, the other penguins surround it and prop it up. They walk around it until that penguin can walk on its own. That's kind of what the cast did for me. For a while, he thought he could hide behind his infectious humor and push forward with his life on the wings of the success of Friends. He said, "I thought being funny all the time was how I would get through it. I thought Friends was going to fix everything, but it didn't." Ultimately, Matthew would get clean and sober in 2001, but he estimated that he relapsed 60 or 70 times over the years, according to his 2022 memoir, Friends, Lovers, and the Big Terrible Thing. Along the way, he had many stints in rehabilitation facilities and suffered through a number of serious health issues, including a 5-month hospitalization in 2018 after his colon ruptured due to overuse. So he had an incredibly long battle just trying to beat his own habits, which was extremely difficult for him, as it would be for anyone. Yes, he said he had a good support system, but it's not always that simple. Number 6, the dramatic weight loss. When sharing about his substance use and the toll it began to take on his body, Matthew confessed he was taking as many as 55 pills a day, which contributed to his weight dropping to just 128 pounds. In an interview last year, he admitted that he didn't know how to stop. He also shared an analogy that explains the power that these substances had over him at the height of his TV career. He said, "If the police came over to my house and said, 'If you drink tonight, we're going to take you to jail,' I'd start packing. I couldn't stop because the disease and the addiction is progressive, so it gets worse and worse as you grow older." At his lowest point, Matthew revealed that he was given just a 2% chance to live while in the hospital. He spoke out this horrific experience in the memoir and how he had the mental strength to survive that trauma. During last year's interview, he told his story and became overcome with emotion, saying, "I'm an extremely grateful guy. I'm grateful to be alive, and that's for sure. And that gives me the possibility to do anything." He went on to reveal that part of his inspiration for writing an open and honest memoir, with all the ups and downs, was the hope that his stories could serve as kind of lifelines for others like Jennifer Aniston was for him. Number 5, the hospitalization. Matthew's memoir, Friends, Lovers, and the Big Terrible Thing, a candid, darkly funny book, exposed his struggles with addictions, which got so severe that in 2018, at the age of 49, he suffered a gastrointestinal perforation as a result of his extreme usage. He was given just a 2% chance of living after being comatose for 2 weeks, and the actor had to use a colostomy bag while his colon healed. Matthew revealed that while his body was relying on the bag, he woke up in a horrific state 50 to 60 times throughout the 5 months he was hospitalized. So he made it very clear that he was suffering during this time. And the worst part about all of this was his secret. All it was. Very few people knew that he was going through this. Matthew once joked that viewers of Friends could now tell that substance he was using by observing his changing appearance. He said in his book, "You can track the trajectory for my addiction if you gauge my weight from season to season. While I'm carrying weight, it's alcohol, and when I'm skinny, it's pills. When I have a goatee, it's a lot of pills," which is extremely sad when you think about how well it was hidden from everybody around him. Number 4, shocking revelations. Matthew Perry admitted 2 years ago that he had suffered from anxiety, which often came when he was trying to be as funny as can be in front of the live studio audience for Friends. The admission came up during the HBO Max Friends reunion with Jennifer Aniston, Courtney Cox, Lisa Kudrow, Matt LeBlanc, and David Schwimmer, which aired in May 2021. He said that trying to be great made him extremely nervous, and his co-stars at the reunion said they never had any idea he was suffering on set, as he always delivered such a fabulous performance while seemingly at ease. He said, "To me, I felt like I was gonna die if they didn't laugh. And it's not healthy for sure, but I would sometimes say a line and they wouldn't laugh, and I would sweat and just go into convulsions if I didn't get the laugh I was supposed to get. I would freak out." His co-star Lisa Kudrow was shocked to hear that. She said that Matthew was always such a cool cucumber, and he was one of the best on set, always delivering a line well as he played Chandler Bing. Even though he never said anything to his co-stars back then, he felt this way every single night. As we know now, his time on Friends was significantly impacted by addiction. Number 3, memoir controversy. One surprise takeaway from Matthew Perry's autobiography was his apparent feelings towards Keanu Reeves after he repeatedly questioned why other actors die while Keanu is still alive. But why is it that the original thinkers like River Phoenix and Heath Ledger die, but Keanu Reeves still walks among us? Upon learning that another former co-star, Chris Farley, had died, he wrote, I punched a hole through Jennifer Aniston's dressing room wall when I found out. Keanu Reeves walks among us. Matthew would later apologize for the comments and released a statement saying, I'm actually a big fan of Keanu. I just chose a random name and it's my mistake. I apologize. I should have used my own name instead. But that's not all. There were a lot of interesting admissions in his memoir. He also revealed that he asked out Jennifer Aniston before filming Friends. He explained how the two of them were the only Friends stars who knew each other before the show, having met 3 years before through mutual acquaintances. In one part of the book, he wrote, I was immediately taken by her, and how could I not be? And I liked her, and I got the sense she was intrigued too, but maybe it was going to be something. It's safe to say that fans were more than shocked by that revelation. Number 2, celebrity reactions. In the wake of Matthew Perry's sudden death, reactions and tributes have been pouring in from the Friends community, including some of his former co-stars. Many of these amazing tributes paying homage to Perry's life and legacy both on and off screen. The official Friends account on Instagram made a post saying, we are devastated to learn of Matthew Perry's passing. He was a true gift to us all, and our heart goes out to his family, loved ones, and all of his fans. A representative for the actor and law enforcement confirmed his death to NBC News. He was found at his home in Pacific Palisades after an apparent drowning, and he was only 54. Known best for his iconic portrayal of Chandler Bing on the long-running sitcom Friends, Matthew Perry won international recognition and critical acclaim throughout his prolific Hollywood career. Aside from Friends, he also starred in television series and films like Studio 60 on the Sunset Strip, Growing Pains, Ally McBeal, 17 Again, and Perry received an Emmy nomination in 2002 for Outstanding Lead Actor in a Comedy Series for his role as Chandler Bing, and later Emmy and Golden Globe nominations for his performance in the 2007 miniseries The Ron Clark Story. And number 1, co-stars speaking out. The actress who portrayed Chandler's ex-girlfriend Janice on the show, Maggie Wheeler, also remembered the late Matthew Perry in a statement shared with NBC News. She wrote, Matthew was an incredibly generous actor. There was no single time I stepped onto the stage with him that I did not feel lifted by his brilliance. Even in his darkest moments, his comedic timing was impeccable. Maggie said that Matthew suffered so terribly as his book revealed to the world, and that she hopes he is at peace beyond that suffering. He died way too soon and will be missed by all who loved and knew him in life, and as the beloved Chandler Bing. Maggie also shared a tribute on Instagram alongside a photo of the two of them from the show. She wrote, what a loss. The world will miss you, Matthew Perry. The joy you brought to so many in your too short lifetime will live on. I feel so very blessed by every creative moment we shared. In the show, Janice and Chandler were no doubt a fan favorite couple. For a recurring character who only appeared in 20 of the show's 236 episodes, Janice's relationship with the gang added a surprisingly interesting subplot to the show. And even though she ultimately didn't end up with Chandler, there are still so many people who love to see their romance unfold on screen.